It's the final tune-up before the PGA Championship, and it is a brand new course this week for the Truist Championship. It is the Philadelphia Cricket Club playing host to a signature event for this week in the PGA Tour. Rory McIlroy, the betting favorite. No Scotty Scheffler, but still a lot of good names in the field for this week. Our job today is to break down that field, break down this new course, and let you know our top bets and DFS picks over on FanDuel. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Tuesday by Brandon Gdula. You can find him on X at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. Check out his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, Truist Championship coming up this week. How you doing today?
I'm good. It's always a strange week whenever we don't have past data to dig into. It's weirdly feels like you can phone it in a bit, but then I always end up clawing and scrapping to try to figure out anything. So it ends up to be more work, even though I don't account for it too much. So I don't know. I think it's just a little too much time on the hands sometimes, sitting around Monday evening and just like, well, what if I could uncover this or that, or, so I dug in, but basically it's a signature event where we got tons of big names. We're basically looking for the guys who can go out and I know I say this a lot, but it's a week where you got to step on some necks and go get it done. So who can do that? Who can figure out a course whenever the footing is sort of even? So I'm pretty excited. How are you doing?
I'm excited because I think that we've got some inside information on this week's events because we're looking for data, trying to scrounge for data. I'm scrounging for narratives. The most important narrative this week is they're playing in Philadelphia. And Jordan Spieth is a Cowboys fan, and he knows he's going to get some crap from the crowd. We were talking about this at the Players when we were recording stuff with Gronk. He was saying back in early March that he was excited to come to this course when I'm not sure he totally knew he'd get a sponsored invite or if he'd qualify for this event. And he was like, yeah, I got to go to Philadelphia. They're going to be razzing me because the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So like motivation through the roof for Jordan Spieth, and like, hey, shot a 62 Sunday, almost made you look pretty smart. If Scotty Scheffler hadn't been 47 strokes in front of the field, apparently we underestimated him. We said he could win by 4. So
no,
I feel 6. Like the Eagles fans in the crowd narrative is the most important data you could possibly uncover on a Monday night.
Yeah, that one didn't come across my my radar, but yeah, you had that nailed for a couple weeks now, I guess a couple months, but yeah, I mean, we said we did the math and it was like, hey, if everyone plays their baseline, Scotty can win by, I think it worked out to be 6.8 shots.
Yeah.
It was, because it was more than that. But look, it is what it is. If the favorite goes out and wins by a couple hundred shots, then there's nothing you can do. Rory McIlroy kind of has the potential to do something like that this week, although it's different. There's Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele. I would struggle with Ludwig. It's like, is he the cutoff there? Because
sure,
I like him a ton, but the data doesn't like him as much as I think people want to like him just yet. But look, it's going to be interesting. I'm always up for a new course, but it is also hard not to look ahead a little bit to next week. Get those, you want to talk narratives? I mean,
baby.
We got Rory coming into Quail Hollow. We got Jordan. Like, we could have another Grand Slam winner if Spieth gets it done. Like, that's outrageous to think about. And that's basically all I want.
Yeah.
Is like, how would Rory feel?
Oh, man. I think he'd still be fine, frankly.
I
feel like he'd be fully unbothered.
It would be very Rory-esque, though, to
get overshadowed immediately,
get equaled as soon as possible. And like, okay, now he's got to go out and win a bunch more. But
if we can go into the summer with Jordan Spieth in good form, Rory in good form, Scotty Scheffler in obviously very good form too, and then you add in Bryson for like the majors for the US Open and the Open Championship, like golf storylines are not peaking, but they're getting pretty close to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's that time of year, and I know we're we're going a little bit long on the intro here, but
Yeah.
just a field, not a lot of course data to dig into or anything. But I think we got some interesting angles this week, and I just basically need to not have a monumental collapse in our head-to-head DFS contest. So basically, just running out the clock on that one, but can't pull a Boston Celtics and just start jacking up threes and not thinking about stuff too much. So this happens it's easy to kind of say like, oh, this happens all the time. This happens every year. I get out ahead in our DFS contest, and then I just keep losing and keep losing. And Jim has enough with like 4 events left where he needs 3 out of 4, and then it's over and over and over again. So I need to go out and get another one. I need a couple more after that, but I think this week is going to be fun from a DFS standpoint too.
But you got to get wins for our win picks contest too, to catch up, make up some ground there. And I think we got some guys who could help you do that this week. There are some bets that I do like in the outright markets, despite the fact that Rory is here. We're going to dive into those, talk about the course and much more to get you ready for the Truist Championship in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We're here every week breaking down that week's PGA Tour events. Next week, I have not discussed this with Brandon yet, but hey, maybe we'll run the same format as for the Masters, where we record Monday for the heat check, doing some DFS picks and some outright bets, and then circle back on Tuesday and break down some non-outrights on covering the spread. What do you say?
I say let's aim for that.
Did I intentionally not ask you beforehand so I could put you on the spot? Who can say? Is it me forgetting to ask someone something, which has never happened, or was it an intentional scheme? Who can say? Anyway, next week we'll have plenty of coverage for you for the PGA Championship. Again, both here on the FanDuel Research Podcast feed, but also on Covering the Spread. And both those shows can be found in the same place on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Check out that on YouTube. Subscribe there, leave us a thumbs up on this video, and make sure you are subscribed to get these shows every single week. And of course, again, 2 shows next week to get you set for the PGA Championship and all the fun storylines there. FanDuel is the best place to find all your favorite player props. And now you can make the smarter play with new performance trends. Want to see if a guy's hitting the over consistently, or maybe if he's been flirting with a potential triple-double? Get the latest stats right inside the app and see who is heating up. And once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can buy live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. If you don't already have FanDuel, it's not too late to get in on the action. You'll get started at $200 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit M&T Gambling Help in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at the key stats for this week's event. It is the Philadelphia Cricket Club, which is 7,119 yards and a par 70. As we've alluded to, this is the first time that they have played this course on the PGA Tour. Typically, the Truist is held at Quail Hollow, which of course is busy, otherwise occupied, getting set for next week's PGA Championship. There are a lot of bunkers on this course, 118 to be exact, the most of any course so far this year on the PGA Tour. It is a no-cut event. There are 72 golfers in the field for this week, and all 72, barring disaster, will be in the field for all 4 rounds for this week. So, Brandon, obviously, no actual data to look at. What should we know about Philadelphia Cricket Club as we get set to see it for the first time?
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about this till just now. The specific course at the club, I think there's 3 courses there. It's the Wissahickon.
That there's a reason I did not say the course, because I didn't want to try to say that.
And like, I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I live in central Pennsylvania, but
Yeah.
like Philly pronunciation is different. So sorry if that's not how it's said, in the Philadelphia area, but
Yeah.
I guess I think maybe I just subconsciously didn't think about it until having to say it now. But, you know, I wanted to at least lampshade the fact that I might be butchering that. So sorry. Do you have something?
I'm trying to find pronunciations, and it's not a fruitful search. So Sahikon, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, all right. Anyway, let's establish it as that, and we'll just refer to it as the course from, henceforth it will be known as this course for the rest of the show. But yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it. It's hosted some prominent golf events since it was restored in 2013, but nothing that we can really hang our hats on and take away data wise, or at least that I'm not trying to dig into. So I'm not going to. What we have is the course characteristics, pretty average length par 70, with slightly smaller than average bent grass greens, about just under 5,800 square feet on average are the greens. PGA Tour average is around 6,100 square feet overall. You look at the course, it looks like it's going to be kind of a nice test of golf. But what you notice if you look at a hole by hole breakdown is that there's, again, it's like an average length for a par 70, but there's two really long par threes over 200 yards, three par fours over 480. On the back end of that, you got two short par threes under 175 yards. One of them is about 125 yards. And then some shorter par fours, but I think that there's ways that this could play tricky. If you look at similar tracks in my database, which is based on a couple different like characteristics, I'm not saying that they're identical, but par 70s, sort of average length overall, certain other characteristics, you kind of see a little more emphasis on iron play, which I'm always here for. So I'll take that. And frankly, with all the bunkering, you mentioned the number 118. It's basically the most that we see anywhere. The number can change sometimes, but Pebbles around like 116, 118 as well. Just for some context. So sand save percentage, it's not a great stat overall necessarily. But I'm going to filter it in a little bit throughout, looking at the last 2 years, just so that the sample is large enough for me to want to care about. But strokes gained around the green, I think, is pretty ideal as well. The correlation's fine. It's usually like 0.45 between those two, and there's more to getting up and down from a bunker than just your actual wedge out of the bunker. So again, it's not the best stat, but it's something that you can maybe think about. So what I'm looking for this week, my key stats: strokes gained approaches, of course. Strokes gained off the tee. I couldn't really figure out if distance or accuracy was going to weigh out more. I could see the case for both, honestly. So I'm just going to simplify it and go strokes gained off the tee. I want strokes gained around the green as well. Proximity or strokes gained per shot from 125 to 200 seems like it's going to be pretty crucial. Got some long par threes, some longer holes overall, but also enough reachable holes. And then strokes gained total. It's an easy one to fall back on, but it's a big field, it's a small field, but a good field. And you got to go out and beat some of the top golfers who are generally in good form right now. So I'm basically looking at a tee to green performance this week. That's what I'm hoping for. And if it turns out that everyone's in contention just because they're putting well, I'd be a little bit surprised based on how this looks from a top down perspective.
Yeah, it does look like a pretty fun course overall in terms of how things could play this week. Don't see anyone going 30 under, I hope, this time around. But I think that it kind of goes back to what you were saying at the top, where it's a good week to kind of just like stick to the basics and pick the best golfers. I know that's a joke. I know that we like say that a lot, but at the same time, golfers' betting odds and golfers' salaries are not sorted by who the best golfers are, or who's in the best form right now. So like you can potentially find some edges by doing that. And so I do think that it is the right way to play things this week. That's personally my preferred style of event, is one where I can just like go with the golfers I think are in the best form and the golfers I think will do the best overall, not having to overly adjust for distance, accuracy, etc. I think that's what we get for this week. So I do think it's one that I like the setup of it as we get prepared for things. And both you and I alluded to form mattering more in this situation. We're trying to identify just straight up who the best golfers are. So, Brandon, you're going to dig into the current form and look at the golfers with the best form entering this week's event. Who stands out to you when you dig into that data?
Yeah, so as always, I'm looking at the last 3 months of data from the True Strokes Gained query at Data Golf. And, we'll look at some lower salaried names, but I think it's worth shouting out that there are 3 names in the field who are averaging at least two shots per round, once adjusted for field strength, basically 2 shots per round over the world average male professional golfer. Unsurprisingly, the name leading the list is Rory McIlroy, who's at a plus 2.56. So way out there. He's won 4 of his last 8 stroke play events, including the Masters. Let's not forget that. Golf is just so like constant, and it was so historic, and it felt so overdue that I'm not saying like, oh yeah, who won the Masters? Let me think about it. But like when I was looking at his, event results, I was like, oh yeah, man, like that's awesome, and I want that to sink in more. So just take that for what it's worth. But again, 2.56 true strokes gained per round over the last 3 months. Nobody else is better than a 2.11, and that is Justin Thomas, who is in second place. He won the RBC Heritage in a playoff, played great fairway through green. Driver was just okay, but the rest of the game was there. It kind of has been there. He's been statistically just constant with some upside as well. Probably end up talking more about him throughout the show, just as we figure out, because as Jim has the betting odds pulled up on FanDuel Sportsbook. It's Rory McIlroy at plus 450, and then it's basically a large tier 2. And if you're not getting in on Rory at plus 450, which I don't blame you, but kind of feels like this has also been a constant where with Rory and Scotty having short odds, they're not really like terrible values or anything. It's just I'm not going to get there personally at that number, but I could see the case of doing so, especially for the guy who won half of his last 8 starts. So so we're gonna have to figure out who to identify in that second tier. But another name that's below that tier, actually, the other name at above a 2.0 true strokes gained per round over the last 3 months is Daniel Berger.
Let's go. Love it.
He was T3 at Heritage. It was his 8th straight top 30 finish and his 4th top 15 in those 8 starts. He's at a 2.03. We've talked about him a lot for a long time now, and you can maybe question the pure upside, although I'm not like scoffing at a T3 or anything like that. But just statistically, his profile was like kind of like a Tommy Fleetwood-esque, where he's very good very often, but doesn't have that, pure spike potential recently. He's had it before, but right now he doesn't. And then I'm just going to shout out, even though he's not there, Russell Henley's at a 1.92, and then things drop off a little bit to Colin Morikawa at a 1.83. So it's a pretty solid top 5 by the true strokes gain metrics over the last 3 months. Does anybody jump out to you that you'd want to talk about first? Should we talk Rory? Yeah. What do you want to do?
So Rory for DFS is the quickest discussion of all time, for me at least, where you just use him. He's $13,000. I think that's too low. So DFS, not really worth discussing from my perspective. For betting, he's plus 450 now. You said that you can understand the case at plus 450. You're not quite there. How long would Rory McIlroy need to be? Because things can lengthen. We're recording on Tuesday afternoon. Things can lengthen between now and Thursday. How much longer would Rory need to be for you to be like, okay, I got to think long and hard about this?
I kind of disagree with my model on this one a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm higher on Rory than what it's capturing.
Yeah.
I would probably say plus 550.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll get quite there, but it's not that far off. And you can't make a case against Rory. I think the best case against him, honestly, is we don't know what the course is going to demand exactly.
Right.
And that kind of levels things out. There's no, there's no course history to look at. That's probably the biggest one, although potentially Quail Hollow next week, a second straight major at a course where he's dominated. He could have a little bit of that look ahead.
Right.
Honestly, he could go out and as absurd as it is to think about, pro golfers before majors will just be like, yeah, I wanted to try some things.
Yeah.
And that's different than trying to go out and win. So
Yeah.
I just can't quite get there with Rory. Even if he's plus 550, I'd take some pause because of those reasons that I just said. What about for you? Where would you need him?
5 is where I'm like, okay, I got to look deeper into this. 550, I would go 100%. I would absolutely fire at that number. I don't think we're going to get that. I agree with you, where I don't think we'll get there. But there, boosts exist. 5 is realistic for Rory. A little bit longer than that is realistic as well. And that's where I think you're like, okay, thinking long and hard about this. And the reason is it's not the same as Scotty last week, where he was, a full shot and a half or whatever it was better than the field per round. But like if you look at so the number I use is strokes gained at stabilization, which is more recent data for ball striking, longer term data for short game data because it takes longer to stabilize. And in that, Rory's a 2.65 strokes gained per round. Second best is Colin Morikawa at 1.97. And so that gap is 0.68 strokes per round. So again, not the same gap as what we had with Scheffler last week, but Scheffler was also plus 260, plus 270. Rory is plus 450. And again, that's accounting for the fact that we got some freaking dudes in this field that they're accounted for in that number. Xander's not fully healthy right now. Like that's, opening up some win equity. So if you gave me a Rory at 5, I would give that a lot of thought. Like if let's say we're recording right now, if Rory lengthened to 5 before our win pick segment, I'd pick Rory. I think that's kind of the way that I view it there. In our win picks contest, I'd probably take him at 5. 450, not quite there. 550, I'm taking it. 525, somewhere in that range. Then I'm getting a pretty itchy finger at that point. So he's not far off where I think. And that honestly is a big consideration for the rest of the field. Cause it's like, if I think that Rory is legitimately worth almost plus 450, that means I got to be picky with other guys. Cause like he's sucking up a ton of win equity all by himself.
Yeah. I got no complaints there. It's really hard to overstate how good Rory is. And like he turned a corner with, I think, the mental side of things.
Yeah.
And it's got to be just like house money at this point. He's got a green jacket at, that nobody can ever take that away from him. No. He's got to be just vibing. And like, I mean, I know it's not a major, but he won the Players and the Masters. Like, there's basically nothing that could make him like flinch right at this point. Exactly. I think the biggest case against them is just that he might not care if he wins this week.
Exactly. I agree with that. I think that is the biggest case against him as of right now. Okay. We'll talk about Daniel Berger later. I will circle back to him in a different segment. So we'll talk more about him later on because he is very much worth discussing. Who are the golfers with lower DFS salaries who are entering with some pretty solid form?
Yeah, I think this is the more interesting case, although it's hard to get more interesting than Rory. But, for what we're looking for, Michael Kim leads the way at golfers with a salary of $10,000 or lower on FanDuel in terms of their true strokes gained per round over the last 3 months. He's at a 1.64. The finishes haven't looked particularly good of late. No top 25s in his last 5, but has made 4 straight cuts since the Players. Irons are still really, really good. The wedges have cooled off, and that might be something to sort of get our attention of maybe he was pretty good everywhere, and then he was gaining a lot around the green, and now that he's not, it's fine but not amazing. But the salary is only $9,300. Not really there for like anything like an outright for Michael Kim. I'm going to keep the outrights to the big dogs this week because you get some big dogs at some bigger numbers, which I definitely like. But Michael Kim, 13th in approach over the last 3 months. So hard to knock that too much at a salary of 9,300. Danny McCarthy, 9,700 is the salary. He's at a 1.5 true strokes gained per round in this span. 49th at Heritage and 29th at the Masters. Since having 3 straight top 20 finishes prior to that, the irons are still pretty good. Driver wedges, kind of neutral the last 3 months, but he's the best putter in the field over the last 3 months, and probably just subjectively, if you had to pick one, you'd probably pick Denny McCarthy just in any field ever at this point. Justin Rose is next up. Salary's 9,100. He's at a 1.37 true strokes gained per round. 42nd at the RBC Heritage after that playoff loss at the Masters. He's just really hot and cold form, super volatile golfer. He's basically admitted to like he's going to pick and choose, and he is leading into a major. So, that's something to keep in mind. But he is top 20 in approach and putting over the last 3 months, which are the 2 stats that lead to spikes. And it's no surprise that he is able to have some great results whenever things are being put together at the same time. Aaron Rai, next up, 9,200 is the salary. He's at a 1.26 true strokes gained per round. Super accurate, most accurate driver in the field over the last 50 rounds, but putter's kind of cold. It's been cold the last 2 of the last 3 starts. He's 16th in ball striking over the last 3 months, though. It's a really good salary. Talk more about Aaron Rai soon, I'll say. Brian Harmon, 8,900 is the salary, 1.26, so same as Aaron Rai in this span. Won the Valero, 36 at the Masters and 3rd at the Heritage. He is top 26 in all 3 fairway through green stats, so approach around the green and putting the last 3 months. If driver ends up not being the most vital stat, Brian Harmon probably playing good enough golf to give it a run. So sub $9,000 salary, I think he's worth shouting out for sure. JJ Spawn, 1.21, 9,600 is the salary for Spawn. Lost the playoff at the Players. Since then, missed the cut at the Houston Open, 50th at the Masters, 42nd at the RBC Heritage, but he is still a top 10 in approach over the last 3 months. So take that for what it's worth at a mid-level salary. And then rounding out the list, Andrew Novak, 9,100 to roster him on FanDuel for DFS this week. He's at a 1.16. He won the Zurich Classic with teammate Ben Griffin off the heels of a T3 at the Valero and a playoff second at the RBC Heritage to our guy, Justin Thomas. Andrew. Glad you got the Zurich, though. 4th around the green, 22nd off the tee over the last 3 months, but 48th in approach, 31st in putting. Kind of a strange profile for Novak. Don't exactly love him, even at 9,100, but it is what it is.
It's hard not to be intrigued, though, right? Given
there's
third,
enough.
second, first, and in those, the approach was better. The off the tee play's been generally fine, but also we do know that we don't want to buy into very small sample approach gains for a guy who is 30. He's not old, but he's 30. He's not super young either. The approach play, though, I guess had been good if you dig back deeper. So if we're willing to say, okay, he had a lull with his irons where they weren't very good, and now we're seeing him round back into form, and that's why he's claiming this upside. He's gotten better with the short game. Off the tee play has been pretty solid. I think this is a pretty strong case for Novak, especially for DFS in 91, where everybody's flawed. Not everybody's flawed in this field, I guess. But there are flaws down there for sure. I find him very interesting, at least. I think there are guys that more for betting in that range, but for DFS in 91, I feel like Novak, he's done enough to make me be okay, I got to dig deeper into this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him that much, but I don't think it's a no-brainer by any means.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Is I just wanted to express some caution. So thanks for basically not making it sound like I didn't like him.
Yeah.
It's just some caution because he's doing it in a way that might not be the most bankable, but that's not that it's not good. Just look, you want to gain strokes. Yeah. Doesn't matter how you do it. That's where you want to start. But you want to see the irons be better, and he's been, long term a better iron player. So, and to be honest, I know JT went out and beat Andrew Novak in that playoff, but he had me nervous.
Oh yeah,
because he's kind of got that in him. So
yeah,
I think there's enough. And thanks for holding me accountable
No, it's
a
because I
bit.
know that you're a Novak guy. Like historically, you have been a Novak guy. So I wanted to. I knew where you're coming from with it, and like it was just hard to ignore him at 91.
Yeah, this is, I haven't really built a ton of lineups yet.
Yeah.
I feel like, there's the big name at the top that we're gonna, want to roster in Rory. Probably got to get back down here. Also, I just wanted to clarify that you said Rory and DFS is the easiest combo of all time. It's not true. Scotty last week was way easier. He was way easier last week, but
I mean, yeah, he was easy, but also still very easy.
It's close, but just wanted to throw that out there where I don't feel as, although I'm gonna play him just as much as I played Scotty, which is
exactly that's kind of what it comes down to for me. Like for Scotty, it was no thought. Rory, it's minimal thought. I think it's the way I'd phrase it.
Yeah.
Much to my dismay, the weather for this week also looks pretty stupid. It ruins the timing of 3 balls and just ruins my entire weekend, frankly. Honestly, I'll be playing in matchups anyway. I'm not as fine on matchups, but prefer 3 balls. More rain beginning midday Thursday, continuing throughout the day on Friday. The wind will be a lot higher on Friday than it is Thursday, which means I would guess you'd want to be out there earlier Thursday to get more rounds in before things get gross. But the delays, and I think we're going to get delays, could throw things into a tizzy. So I don't really know. I don't know who has an advantage as far as like when you want to tee off for this event, because we're going to have delays and that throws everything kind of in a blender. Weekend is pretty calm, but again, some rain this weekend, which will be very annoying. And I am sad about that in advance. No actionable takeaways from that, at least as the forecast stands on Tuesday. Let's take a look now at the betting odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook and dive into our favorite outrights to win for this week. Brandon, when you look at the win odds at FanDuel Sportsbook, which golfers do you think stand out as being the best values for this week?
I struggled a lot this week. I'm just going to lead off with that, where I said there were too many names that I liked. It's hard in these signature events not to like too many names unless you just are. And I'm a pessimist, so like you would think I would still be like, no, there's nothing here. It's you really gotta nitpick these guys. And I looked at Colin Morikawa. He changed his putter last time out. Didn't go great for him.
Changed his caddy.
Yeah. There's like some change, right? With Xander, you're kind of figuring out where he's lining up with everything. Is he back? Very may well be, but Ludwig, it's tough for me with Ludwig, where I know the potential is amazing, but you can still kind of nitpick it, and a lot of bunkers this week. Don't necessarily love that, and so I figured, you know what? By the time we start recording, I'm going to get some clarity, and I think that I did, and I am going to start off this week for the Truist Championship once again with Justin Thomas at 16-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Here's why. Over the last 50 rounds, Justin Thomas is the second best golfer by true strokes gained per round, trailing just Rory McIlroy. Rory's at a 2.6, JT's at a 2.2. Yes, it's not negligible, but their putting splits based on distance, very similar. They're kind of average, from within 15 feet, pretty good right now on those lag putts, which may not be sustainable. But if you want upside, Justin Thomas has it. If you look at each golfer's average true strokes gained per round over their last 50 rounds, and then add a standard deviation to it, Justin Thomas leads in that sort of attainable ceiling metric at a 5.1 true strokes gained per round metric. Rory's second at a 4.8. Xander Schauffele is at a 4.7, and then you get a bunch of guys at 4.4 and lower. That's a pretty big gap. And one of the way that he's doing it is with the irons and frankly, the wedges a little bit more than you see elsewhere. But he is one of the best wedge players that we have on tour. He leads in, again, same exact method to get to the standard deviation, ceiling, etc. Strokes gained tee to green, he's at a 4.4 is sort of his attainable kind of realistic ceiling. 4.4, that is. Nobody else is above a 3.8. And that stuff adds up, especially whenever you look at, okay, well, what if he hits a bunch of bunkers? Since the start of last season, he ranks 18th in sand save percentage on tour, on tour. Within this field, he is the 18th best in terms of sand saves over the last 2 years on tour. You look at the distance splits in terms of strokes gained proximity from, the key stats, maybe 150 to 200, 100 to 150, whatever it is, 200 plus. He's great on everything. He did shorten from 18 to 16. You don't love that, but you can't really nitpick Justin Thomas in any form or fashion. So for me, can't dally any longer. This is where I make my decision. Usually it's before the show. Couldn't do it. Too many names. Justin Thomas. I'm not going to feel bad with Justin Thomas based on everything that's in his profile right now.
So a little inside baseball here is every week we record the show, I will send over clip recommendations for YouTube Shorts to our producer Justin Lane, and I kind of know who I've recommended in the past as far as clips go. And a couple weeks ago, I was like, "Hey, Justin, be honest. How many times have I asked you to clip JT for us?" And he said it's 3, but I don't mind because his name is Justin. And so I was like, "Okay, cool. Let's run it back. Let's run Justin Thomas again." And then he freaking won. So. We've been here a lot on Justin Thomas, recommending him to win. We've been here a lot for a reason. And it's the thing you alluded to. That upside is good. He has shown the ceiling. He has shown consistency. His baseline is high. At 16-1 in a field where you've got some question marks. I know he's not going to have the same guy in his bag as when he won, but Colin Morikawa is changing caddies. Xander is banged up. I like Xander, banged up. Ludwig's up and down. Patrick Cantlay not allowed to win. So if Rory is focused on Quail Hollow, there's possibility for someone else to jump up there. And I think that JT could very much be that guy. So you convinced me. I'm in on JT. If I were to not bet, let's say I do get a plus 525 or so on Rory, the one reason I might not bet it is because I'd already bet my 2 win picks. Now I added JT, so my outright card is getting pretty full. But I think JT's worth that. You talked me into him.
Yeah, I mean, he just does whatever is needed. And look, if you're not going Rory, I think there's reasons to like Colin. I think there's reasons to like Xander. There's always reasons to like Ludwig, but Justin Thomas right now to me is as good as anyone at his peak, which is what you're looking for an outright.
I agree with that. So Justin Thomas, 16-1, your first outright of the week. Who else do you like from a win perspective on FanDuel?
A lot of different ways that we could go with this. I looked at Tommy Fleetwood again. He changed the putting stats went not through the roof. He was 23rd in putting at the Heritage, 9th in putting from 5 to 10 feet. I think he was tied for 6th from within 10 overall. You love to see that. But for me, it's still not quite enough. Where I'm going to go is we just talked about the Justin Thomas fatigue. We're going to get it again. Although, frankly, we talk about golf every week, and they're great golfers. So we talk about the same guys a lot. That's just what it is. But another great golfer who makes a lot of sense to me this week is Russell Henley.
It's not fatigue because it's worked. He won money for us.
Yes. The game just translates wherever, unless it's super long, but even then, he plays the US Open well. So there's just nothing. He's a great golfer without that household name value. He's the 3rd best bunker player by sand save percentage since the start of last PGA Tour season among golfers in this field. He's 14th or better in all 3 fairway through green stats by strokes gained. So approach around the green and putting. And again, if you're saying, look, we don't know a lot, but you got to hit some fairways, but maybe you can kind of hit it a little bit long whenever it's possible. But overall driver is not what determines the winner here, which I think is a fair assumption to sort of make. I think it's the only assumption you should make. I think you should consider angles where driver is really important, but I don't quite see it as much. If that's the case, Russell Henley he's already one of the best golfers in the world, but if driver doesn't mean as much, he is one of the best players in the world. He won the Arnold Palmer Invitational in early March. We were there on that. T30 at the Players, missed the cut at the Masters, but he struck the ball well. Just didn't really have the putter with him. We last saw him T8 at the RBC Heritage while gaining an approach around the green and putting. And again, if you go with that angle of downplaying driver, a lot of different names come, surging up, but probably no more among the, 40-1 and shorter favorites than Russell Henley.
I couldn't agree more. And Henley is one of my outright picks for this week as well. 35-1 to me is just too good of a number to not go with Russell Henley, given, just like you said, how good of a golfer. Like, he's a good golfer. I know it comes back to what we said at the top. Prioritize overall quality of play, and that pushes you towards Russell Henley. He ranks 4th in the field in strokes gained and stabilization behind Rory McIlroy, Colin Morikawa, and Justin Thomas, who are all now 16-1 or shorter to win this event. Lots of bunkers at this course. Not the longest course from yardage perspective. And the irons for Henley are pretty electric right now. So really hard for me to pass him up at this number. So yeah, like, we bet him a lot, but it's worked out. And he keeps on getting good results, keeps on putting up good, like, underlying data. I'm not going to stop betting Russell Henley, especially, again, 35-1 is a really good number compared to the market. So I see no reason not to like Russell Henley. Like, again, we keep doing it. We keep doing it for a reason. Russell Henley's just too good to pass up at 35-1 in my eyes.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those, tell me why Russell Henley can't win this. And I would be surprised at what your answer is, unless you say you got to overpower this course with distance. Right. That's just not how I see it from the top down, from everything else. So, yeah, let's go Russ again.
All right, so you got Justin Thomas 16-1, Russell Henley 35. I also have Russell Henley at 35-1 to win for this week. My other outright is in a guy who the data doesn't support quite as much, but I do think that, like, the eye test does, and the eye test says that Xander Schauffele is getting healthy once again. He's sitting at 16-1 to win this week, and I feel like that number is good enough for me to buy back in because he's shown some glimpses of being himself once again. The irons for Xander were sick at the Valspar, sick at Augusta, sick at the RBC Heritage. The short game has looked good the past 2 events as well. It's just the one thing is that the driver is failing him, but even that was good at Augusta, and he's had the distance throughout that time as well. If you look at this field right now and you say long-term, Xander Schauffele, if we're assuming he's healthy, he would not be 16-1 with no Scotty Scheffler in this field. And if I look at this field and say, hey, if there's one guy who wins this event and I'm like, oh man, I'm kicking myself, I should have bet him. If it's not Rory, that to me, the next guy up is going to be Xander Schauffele, especially sitting at 16-1 to win for this week. If we want to get a discount on a guy coming off an injury, we got to be willing to buy in before the data fully supports it. And I think that's what we got here with Xander Schauffele. So I'm going to take Xander Schauffele 16-1 to win this week. Have you seen enough with Xander to justify betting him in this situation, or is it a bit too early for you to quite pull the trigger?
No, I mean, I'd also never besmirch Xander, but he's coming back from an injury that should have impacted his ball striking, and it really didn't. The short game is what's kind of lagging behind, which could be from a lack of practice, but he's probably got to be, tip top for the PGA. He finished T8 at the Masters in a pretty, forgettable like T8 situation. Was T18 at the RBC Heritage. He just is gaining with approach. He's gaining distance. And again, I don't think that distance is going to be what matters. It's not going to be just, who hit it the longest this week. So yeah, I definitely see enough from Xander, but whenever you I can't believe like I'm to this point, and I'm grateful that with Justin Thomas, it's like, okay, right now though, who do I think can go out and play a little scrappier? Right now it's Justin Thomas. Sure. Like who do I think is going to get out of bunkers? There's 118 of them this week. I think it's Justin Thomas. So at the same number, if I'm picking one, it's going to be JT, but nothing wrong with Xander. And I think he even makes sense compared. Colin Morikawa is going to go out and win eventually. He's going to make some putts. His tee to green game is phenomenal. But yeah, it's nothing against Xander. It's just you can really only bet, depending on how you do things. You can really only bet one of these names on this board. And
it's a 4K no list situation. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Like, for me, I've got Xander 16, JT 16, Henley 35. Well, Henley 31, truthfully, but like and Xander Anyway,
Okay.
I bet those three. I'm cool with those three. That's why I can't add Rory, I don't think. But like those three and Stan Pat, I'm fine with in this field.
That's interesting for you. I think that's telling because
it's because I like JT enough. And like I was gonna be cool with Xander and Henley and like chill there and like let it ride with those two. And you freaking talked me to JT. So like it's your fault. And you deserve full blame.
Well, it all depends on how you structure your card and what your expectations are. That's obviously the most important thing.
My expectation is that Russell Henley wins by 5 strokes.
Okay, well, I was being serious here. Just make sure like what you're putting in is, of course, what you're okay with, but you can also configure like, okay, what's the pure outcome? And if you just bet the top 5 names, what's the odds you kind of reach the outcome you want? You got to look at it that way. I think you could probably talk me into a second name there. Would you? I know.
I don't want a head-to-head.
No.
The two. Okay, cool.
Straight up, like let's say Morikawa was also 16. Xander or Morikawa for you?
I'd probably still go Xander. I think that the upside is better with Xander right now, and that's kind of the key selling point for me. I think that like baseline, like if it's a head-to-head between Morikawa and Xander, I'm taking Morikawa and I'm laying like minus 125 on that on Morikawa over Xander. But like, who has the better odds to win this event? I think that's Xander.
Yeah, Morikawa just doesn't make enough putts. Like it's. I don't want to just hang that on him because he's a better putter than he gets credit for.
He's been good. He's been a good putter for a full calendar year now.
But he did finally try out a new putter. Didn't quite work out for him the way it did for Fleetwood, but the point here is that Xander is in a good spot. And I think that's the most interesting thing.
Yep. So I got Xander 16, Russell Henley 35. You also have Russell Henley 35 along with JT 16-1 to win for this week. What about the non-outrights? Where are you seeing value there this week?
So I like a lot of names. I think Hideki is really interesting. Great bunker player. But if I'm looking for what my model deems like the best value, it's going to be on a different name to have a ceiling and finish top 10. And it's going to be for Shane Lowry. Phenomenal tee to green player is Shane Lowry. We know that.
Which market do you want?
Top 10.
Top 10 with ties or without?
No, without.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. It was a little trickier to find, but he should be 3-1. Yeah. So look, he faded at Augusta on Sunday, shot an 81, but he's been really good other than that in 2025. 7th best in strokes gained tee to green over the last 50 rounds, 9th in overall strokes gained average, while not being the best putter. And I think, you can make the case, like I said, where driver's not the most important thing. This might not specifically turn into just a putting contest. This might be an all-around test. You missed the slightly smaller than average greens. You got to get up and down. He can do that. He is 42nd in strokes gained putting over the last 50 rounds, but a 68th percentile putter from within 15 feet on tour this season. 31st percentile putter from beyond that. So better short range putter than he is long range putter right now. That tends to balance out. So he's a regression candidate from that standpoint. So if you give me top 7 tee to green numbers with putting regression on the way, slightly average bunker play, Shane Lowry 3-1 to finish top 10 in a smaller but very tough field. I like that.
You don't got to sell me on Shane Lowry to finish top 10. I am very okay with that. So Shane Lowry top 10, 3-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook for you. Any other non-outright stand out to you?
Yes, a top 20 from one Aaron Rai. Now, Aaron Rai is a name we've targeted quite a bit. Plus 170 to finish top 20. Just a low variance player, which is something that I've had to convince myself of. It's just the case. He's super accurate. Most accurate golfer in the field over the last 50 rounds, but great tee to green numbers. Should have some putting regression coming his way. as well, which, we talk about kind of a lot, but,
Said that for a full year now.
but it worked out, and then
Yeah,
it kind
it's
of
worked
cooled
out.
off.
Yeah,
And then,
exactly.
51st percentile putter from within 15 feet, 35th from longer than that. So those numbers should they don't necessarily match up, but you want to bank on the more makeable putts long term. And he's 10th in this field in strokes gained per shot from 150 to 200 yards. Just a really good ball striker. I'll just kind of leave it at that. So 16th in the field over the last 3 months in ball striking as well. So he should hit fairways. He should be able to hit the green. And that should be a pretty big leg up for him to finish top 20. So Aaron Rye plus 170 top 20. I like that this week.
And that's the right market for a guy like Rye in this field is a top 20 at plus 170, just because, again, you don't need upside there. You need consistency and steadiness, and he can do that for sure. So Aaron Rye plus 170 for a top 20, and Shane Lowry 3-1 for a top 10 is where Brandon is going. I'll begin things here with my top 20 bet, and that's a guy we alluded to earlier on because his form has been very, very good. It's Michael Kim. He is currently plus 180 for a top 20, and he has been going through a bit of a lull, which makes sense because he had just played a lot of golf over the spring trying to qualify for the Masters, which he did, but he's had now 2 weeks to rest up. He had a week off before Augusta too, so I don't think he should be as burned out as he was for those previous couple of events. And even when he was burned out, he was awesome on approach at Augusta, really good at the RBC Heritage too, and he's a guy who, if you look beyond those two events, has gained in other areas as well. I just like getting a guy with Michael Kim's ball striking at a number this good at plus 180 for a top 20. So to me, that's the selling point for Michael Kim is you get good, decent driver, really good irons for plus 180 for a top 20. I'm going to be okay taking that for sure. So Michael Kim, plus 180 for a top 20 is where I'm going to start things off. My other non-outright for this week is going to be up in that top 10 mark, and it's another guy we discussed earlier on, having really impressive form right now over a sample that continues to expand. And that's Daniel Berger. I think that Berger is in play as an outright consideration in the 40-1 area, but plus 330 for a top 10 to me, a really good number. Because again, going back to the number I referenced before, strokes gain and stabilization, he ranks 6th there. If you look at short-term ball striking data, longer-term short game data, which means that he's a guy who has been doing this for a long enough time where he's grading out well relative to a very good field. He is someone who gains strokes in all 4 categories, which means he can excel at any course. We go to a new course. I find that very comforting. He ranked 3rd at the RBC Heritage, which gives him now 2 top 5s in 11 events since January 1st. He has been 30th or better in all but one where he missed the cut. So he's been consistent and he's had upside too. Now you put him in a smaller field. Yes, it's a very tough field, but as we discussed, a lot of the guys at the top aren't necessarily in the most immaculate form right now. So I think there are a lot of selling points on Daniel Berger. Can't quite get there for a win because I do like Henley, Xander, other guys more. But for a top 10 at plus 330, I think that Daniel Berger is a really fun value for this week. So we are straight vibing with Daniel Berger for the Truist Championship. Any thoughts for you on Daniel Berger and Michael Kim for this week?
Like Daniel Berger more. I almost got there myself. I'm going to try to get there for DFS at a mid $10,000 salary. Just really consistent game. The upside, as you mentioned, maybe not quite where we want it, but he's had some good finishes. It's just sort of the actual statistical variance, maybe not quite what you're hoping for. But I mean, I guess maybe that's underselling him a little bit. He's 13th in that ceiling metric that I've been referencing. Actually behind Tommy Fleetwood, just for some context there. But Berger's going to get it done eventually, and it's not like he's such a low upside player that he can't win.
Right.
I like him this week. I think I might just get my exposure to him in a DFS format.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Again, I got Daniel Berger top 10 plus 330, Michael Kim plus top 20 at plus 180 as well. Let's talk about the DFS side of things. Rory McIlroy leading things off at $13,000. Now, I said before that I think that Rory is a pretty big no-brainer for this field. And you push back on that. And I guess my case, well, not push back. I don't want to put words, mischaracterize what you said. But you said it wasn't as big of an obvious thing as Scotty. And I don't disagree with that. So I'm saying a different thing than what you said. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Here, what my case for Rory would be, I think that he is $500 under salaried. Like he should be 13.5 this week. And I don't think there is a single other golfer who is $500 under salaried. So do you buy that as a justification for being, just shoveling Rory in as many lines as I can this week?
So if you look at this from a vacuum standpoint of like, is there an obvious number one this week? Yes. Was there an obvious number one last week? Yes. If you compare the two, Scotty was like way more obvious last week. That being said, Rory's going to be in my head-to-head against you. He's going to be in a vast majority of my lineups. Frankly, if not all of them.
Sure. I had Scotty in everyone last week, and I didn't feel bad about that at all.
The only thing I can really point to is he might not be as engaged with winning. However, what would make him feel better than going out and winning this week, leading into, Quail Hollow and a PGA Championship and just winning effectively the third straight major, if you include the players in that. I don't think he's going to go out there and play half-hearted golf. That's not what I'm saying. But for an outright at plus 450, you are asking that he is completely dialed in and super focused on going out and winning. Now, if he's in contention on Saturday, Sunday, he's going to go out and try to win. Yeah. He's going to, I'm not saying he's going into this hoping he finishes 25th and he just works on some stuff. But from a DFS standpoint, super obvious number one play. Don't think anyone's particularly close. So I appreciate that you backtracked a bit, didn't put words in my mouth. But just he is still a no-brainer for sure.
If you put Rory in there, $94 left per golfer, very doable for this week. But it does require a bit of a different approach because you're probably not getting to Morikawa, Xander, Ludwig, JT in that situation. I'm okay with that. Like there are some guys in the mid 8,000 range who I do like, and I'll tinker with like jamming in two of those top guys personally. Like my default approach would be to like skip over them and then jump down. Is that kind of where you settle in as well?
Yeah, I mean, this is a signature event. You don't have Scotty in the field, but you got the rest of the top 12 by the OWGR. Like, go back and look at most signature fields and they're, the top 10s. It's a lot of studs. Yeah. And it's because there's a lot of studs in the field. So by going with Rory, you're kind of, you're not going to get a second A-tier stud, but you can build still a pretty solid lineup where I would most likely be trying to get to Russell Henley. Yeah. If I plug in Russell Henley with Rory, I have 9,025 left for four golfers. That works. Mm-hmm. If not, potentially Daniel Berger. So who are the first couple names you're looking at to pair with Rory?
100% Henley. I feel really good about him. Honestly, I do like Corey Connors at 11,000. We haven't talked about him at all yet, but I like Corey Connors at 11. I like Lowry at pretty much the same number. I like Berger at 10.6. So I like this range. But like you give me one lineup, I'm putting Rory in first, putting Henley in second, and building from there. Because like again, I feel like he has the upside to win. He's shown that in a signature event already this year. So I'm missing out on more win equity for Morikawa, Thomas, etc. But like 10.9's pretty nice for a guy who is as well-rounded and just as good of a golfer as Henley is. He gains off the tee even without distance, which I think is good for a course we don't really know how it'll play. Elite irons, very good putter. I think that makes a lot of sense. So to me, after Rory, it's Henley 1. I would probably go Berger with a slight edge over Lowry. As much as I love Lowry, like I might go Berger 2, Connors 3. But I think all four of those guys are pretty solid. And like we're glossing right over Sepp Straka, who we both appreciate very much. But I think this is a good range, and it makes it easier for me to skip over that second tier.
We are Sepp Straka appreciators for sure. Main hang up for him is just kind of not the greatest bunker play, although you could actually say the same for Daniel Berger, but I think it's just different for Berger right now. So, it still puts the clamps on a little bit. It's not like you're going to get access to, I don't really know if I'm going below 89 for a golfer very often.
I am.
Okay. How low?
83.
And
Let me
how
check.
often?
Enough.
Okay.
Like it very realistically could be 83, 84. There are some guys I like. So like consideration for like a single lineup, honestly.
Okay. That'll be interesting to hear.
Yeah. I'm not totally like sure I'll do that because like I think the upper 9 range is just okay. So I might not need to, in which case I'd be fine sticking in the low 9, upper 8 range. But I'm willing to at least.
Okay, so we like Henley.
Yeah.
We like you're saying Henley, Berger, Lowry is your top 3?
Yes.
I'd go Henley, Lowry, Berger, but
okay.
I don't think I'm getting in on.
Let's say you have one lineup without Rory. Are you going JT in that lineup?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'd lean there too. I prefer Xander for betting more than DFS. So I think I would probably go Justin Thomas as like the top guy for a non-Rory lineup and just go more balanced, kind of getting in. Maybe I can get in a Straka or get in both Berger and Henley or something like that. Go a bit of a different approach. But I think I would go JT in that format as well.
Yeah, JT, Henley, Berger gets you 8,900 per golfer.
Perfect.
For 3 more. That's definitely doable.
Yep, I can do that for sure. I might consider doing that just because. We'll see about that. Okay, let's scroll down here. Anybody else want to shout out in the lower 10K range? I'm really not.
That's what I was going to say is I think that I ranked our top 3. We're basically the same, just flipped Lowry and Berger, but I don't think I'm going to play anybody else particularly.
I should probably refresh this since Jason Day withdrew. Don't use Jason Day. That's how long I've had this tab up because Jason Day withdrew like 2 hours ago and doesn't have the WD tag on there yet. Update. I should restart my computer at some point. Anyway, whatever. Ignore me.
Below that, I would say Denny McCarthy at 97 is probably the first name below 10K I'm looking at. And then, as you mentioned, like that upper 9K range just doesn't do enough for me.
Yeah. Like I had JJ Spawn on my list, but like his form recently, you alluded to in the current form section, is just fine. Like ever since the players, he's been just like, okay. So I don't feel the need to get back up here for my third golfer because you alluded to like, or second golfer or fourth golfer, I guess, in that, the JT plus Henley plus Berger build. I don't need to get back up in this range. I don't need to get back up there with a Rory plus Henley lineup either. I can just go with 4 golfers in that low 9K range because honestly, I might like a lot of guys in the low 9K range more straight up than I like several of the names in this upper 9K range.
I wouldn't really fight you on that by any means. So who are you jumping at first? Is it Michael Kim?
It is up here, same as you, where if I'm up there, I'll take McCarthy, I'll take Spawn. That's totally okay. But Michael Kim, Taylor Pendrith right there. I can't do it. Michael Kim, $9,300 again. Just a really good ball striker to get in this salary range. Not going to find a lot of guys who are as skilled there. I think the rest will do him pretty well. You were talking about how there was some regression around the green. Maybe getting some rest will help him there. So I do like him at 93, but honestly, like there are a lot of names down here who I like. I'm probably not going to use Pendrith this week, so much I adore him. Like just the short game has gotten really, really bad. It's been getting worse. So I don't know if I'll go there, but I'm receptive to Aaron Rye. Don't hate Siwoo Kim, like Andrew Novak at 91. I can talk about Zalatoris later, but like I think there are a good number of names in this low 9K range I like quite a bit. What about you?
Yeah. So Pendrith, not a great bunker player. Michael Kim, actually 5th over the last 2 years in sand save percentage. So just another reason to like him. Aaron Ryan, not the best bunker player. I'm not going to try to, pretend like that he is. But a really good TD Green player shouldn't be in the bunker as much because he should be hitting fairways. And look, if he's hitting bunkers, it's just an implosion anyway. So it's not like I need him to be good from the bunkers for certain, I don't want him in the bunker, right? But he's going to get in some bunkers. Everyone's going to get in some bunkers. And like he's terrible. It's just, sort of subpar from that perspective. But I did warm up to Andrew Novak already. Actually leads the field in sand saves over the last 2 years. I like Akshay at 9,000.
Okay.
Are we capping it at 9K right now?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. I'll talk about you talk about Akshay, then I'll talk about Zalatoris.
So Akshay, pretty solid bunker player, 26th over the last 2 years among this field specifically. Good putter as always, and 20th in iron play over the last 50 rounds for him. He is a spike week player with irons and putting, and to me that is pretty appealing. I know that he's not the longest off the tee, a little more accurate than he is long. That I think is fine this week. So Akshay just kind of feels like he can go out and grind out some success at a course like this. It seems like that's where he tends to play better, is like when he just doesn't go away. So
Yeah.
Akshay at 9,000 does enough to make me want to take a long look there.
Yeah, good putting, good irons. That's a good formula for a guy in the 9K range. So I think that does make a lot of sense. One guy with half of that formula, not the good putting, is Will Zalatoris. Now, Zalatoris, if he were a higher salary, I would not touch with a 10-foot pole because the putting is blood red. If you look at his data golf profile page, it is one of the ugliest things I've seen in my entire life. But his salary's down to $9,000, and the ball striking is really, really good. Especially like the irons have been just super impressive for him recently. And like at some point, the putting will stop being as bad as it is, he said with a question mark at the end.
Will it?
And so, like, yes, it's really bad. Minus 0.35 strokes putting per round over the past 6 months. Almost as bad as you could possibly be. And it's been worse in more recent events. That's counted into his like total strokes gain number. And his total strokes gain number is like, okay, relative to this range. And I don't want to double count how bad the putting is. It's the exact same as Scotty Scheffler when he was putting terribly in 2023. No differences, the exact same golfer. I have a harder time passing up at 9,000. I prefer Novak at 91. I think I like him more than Akshay though, personally. I just think there's enough there when his salary is this low for me to be okay with Zalatoris at 9,000. Whereas if he were even like 97, I'd be like, no, I'm not dealing with that putter there. But 9,000, okay, I can accept it for 1 week.
Okay. I'm typing in a FanDuel points head-to-head between the two of them. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Akshay versus Zalatoris?
I'm okay with that, yes.
All right.
Down. All
Done.
right. Perfect. Okay. Who do you like below 9,000 then?
Not too many, but not too below 9,000. I'm going to go with, we talked about him in current form, Brian Harman.
Yeah.
8,900 is the salary for him. I think that's very reasonable. Another person who's due for some putting regression, above average from within 15 feet, 26th percentile. From beyond that, not a long driver, as we know, but that is not super important. And it's about hitting fairways. I think he makes a lot of sense. Not the best overall ball striker, but that a lot has to do with the fact that he's weighted down by driver to a pretty big degree, 31st in approach over the last 50 rounds. So I think he does enough for me to want to get there. And I would like to kind of cap it at 89, but
sure.
I might not be able to. Who are you seeing down here? It seems like you're much more excited about the 8,000 range than I am.
Yeah, I will say I don't mind Harman. I don't mind Batia, who you alluded to earlier on. So I'm okay with that. The guys who I like down here, if I want to be more aggressive and maybe getting back up above 10K for my third golfer,
Jacob Bridgman.
Yes. Missed the cut last week, which was disappointing considering I bet him to win. Although I guess maybe just, quicker death. So that's probably good. Missed it though because of bad short game, and that's not really his game. He's a little bit more putter reliant than you would like in general. So it's kind of weird to see him struggle there. Maybe it's, hey, just he's regressing now that the short game is coming back to earth, but also did gain an approach in the event last week. He's been doing that a bit more recently. Salary's $8,400. So I like that. And Bridgman's my first guy down here. I don't mind Ryan Gerard, same salary, $8,400. And then Lucas Glover is 86. I think all those guys are golfers I am willing to use if I decide I need a bit more ammo to jump back up. I'm not sure I will, frankly, but if I were to be like, okay, I want to get back up there, I want to be a bit more aggressive, Glover 86, Bridgman 84, and Gerard 84 are the guys I would turn to.
Yeah, I think Bridgman might just be Christian Bezadenhout, but
I mean,
like the stats profiles are very, very similar. I just don't like a lot of names down here enough
yeah,
to want to give too many recommendations. I don't mind Bridgman, but he's got the second lowest ceiling with his irons over the last 50 rounds. So like that's Bezuidenhout-esque, I'll say. So for me, I mean, Bezuidenhout's last and Bridgman's second to last in terms of ceiling from iron play. So it is there. I didn't just make that up, that comparison.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe I should go back to the Iron God Tom Hoagie. But I kind of want to just go to Harmon and stay above that in almost all my lineups. So
and you can this week,
and I can, and
you can.
I think that I should. So that's the way that I'm aiming to play it this week.
I buy that. So who are your loves for DFS this week?
My loves, Rory. I know it's hard to play them together, but JT is my other one.
Okay.
Russell Henley would be sort of the actual number 2. I'm probably going to weasel in Denny McCarthy there.
Sure.
I don't think I'll be in that range enough, but I do like him most out of the upper 9K range by a pretty good margin. I'm going to say Aaron Rye, Andrew Novak, Akshay, and Harmon. So it's a little bit of a longer list than I typically end up with, but it's basically Rory, Henley, and some lower 9K guys. So I don't want to dig too deep into the 8K range.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rory, Henley. I'm going to skip over the entire upper 9 range and dip down to Michael Kim, 93. I think I like Novak enough to put him at 91 as a love. Zalatoris is like a love for tournaments at 9,000. I can't use him against you in a head-to-head. Like that's tough with the putter. But like in a tournament, I can go there. So Zalatoris for tournaments, Novak across all formats, Kim for all formats, Henley and Rory. And then the more I think about it, the more I might go Lucas Glover as my like preferred lower salary play at $8,600. We're back. We never went nowhere.
I had a feeling he was gonna make an appearance here.
Was that feeling based on 8 or 9 years of data telling you that I will eventually get back to Lucas Glover?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. We may have lost Jason Kokrak, but Lucas Glover is here to fill that void as the guy I just turned to as a default at all times.
Yeah.
Okay, you won our bobble hat last week, which means you get to pick for our win picks contest, whether you want to go first and fourth or second and third. Preference for you in that one.
So either way, I'm going to lose one of the names because we both like 2 of the same names. And so I either go first and just get my pick.
Yeah.
Or I let you pick which of it's Justin Thomas and Russell Henley is like neither of us are getting both.
Yeah.
So
you're basically picking, do you want JT or do you want Henley effectively?
Yeah. And I'm going to go JT.
Okay. I think that's the right move. So you had JT 16-1. I would have taken it if you had not. So good call by you. And then I'll go with my 2 win bets of Xander Schauffele 16-1 and Russell Henley 35 for my 2 picks here. So you've got JT. Who are you going with for your other win bet then?
It's really between, well, this is different. It's always different. Because I don't like, yes, the number itself matters, but I just want the winner. So even if I think someone's a little bit overvalued, but I think they might win, that's pretty important here. It's the only thing that matters. Like I could go Morikawa.
You can go Rory.
I could, but that's not going to get me too much.
Yeah.
Because I do need to catch up. I think it's between Morikawa and Hideki, honestly.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go, for the purposes of this, I'm going to go Hideki at 35.
Okay. So you have Hideki 35 and Justin Thomas 16. I have Xander Schauffele 16 and Russell Henley 35 is my 2 win picks for this week. Any final thoughts for you before we close up shop for the Truist Championship and prepare for the PGA Championship?
Enjoy it. We'll be back at you twice next week with the PGA. No, we talked, I guess, longer than I would have expected, but hey, it happens.
Every time.
Happens every time. So here's what it is.
As Brandon said, 2 shows next week, both on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Subscribe there, leave us a thumbs up, and turn on notifications to get those shows as they go live each and every week. Brandon, if people have questions for you on social media, where can they find you there?
I'm on X at Gdula13, GDULA13, and on Blue Sky at Gdula.
And I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work in the video side of things. Justin, clip us a winner, and thank you as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets and your DFS lineups for the Truist Championship. We'll talk to you once again next week to break down the second major of the year. This has been The Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.